You go into your shower feeling, but as soon as you reach for the Irish Spring, your day immediately gets better. That crisp, fresh, unmistakable Irish Spring scent zings your brain and awakens your senses. So when you finally emerge from the shower, 37 minutes later, because you pay the water bill so you can stay in there as long as you want, you're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant Prime.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Hello, everybody, and happy Thursday. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. I've been pumped up for the show all week because I knew this was happening. Lance Medow, welcome back, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Alive and well.
It's good to
be
see
back.
you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's good to be back.
How you been?
I've been good. Business as usual. Working, in case anybody was wondering. Sirius XM.
Yes. Oh, I always
covering
hear
the league from a national perspective, but it's good to be back in Giants land.
Absolutely. And we told you guys this summer we try to get Lance back in the mix whenever we can. We have opportunity this Thursday. We figure we get you in. And unfortunately, Lance, we're in a common situation where the Giants are 0-1 here, and they're trying to figure out a way to win their first game of the year in week 2. And look, there's no week 2 game, and I feel like we've had this conversation many times that's a must-win game, but this is, with the 6 games coming on the schedule after this one, and you're facing a team that you've had a history of success against over the past 4 or 5 years, one of the few teams the Giants have had a history of success against. This is a pretty darn important game for the Giants to walk away with a win. Well,
and it's also within the division, too.
Sure.
So that, I think, elevates the matter. But unfortunately, the Giants have not had a great track record against Dan Quinn's defenses. I know it's different personnel. He did bring over some guys from Dallas, but they lost all 6 matchups against Dan Quinn when he was with the Cowboys, and they only averaged just over 13 points per game. So, listen, John, I'm with you. This is an important game. It goes without saying. Every player and coach will tell you it's important because it's the next game. But to me, the most critical aspect that you want to see is you want to see better production across the board, okay? That, to me, has to be the top priority. Of course, fans are going to tell you it's all about wins and losses. I'm not going to dispute that, but you're talking about an offense that only managed 2 field goals. In fairness, one of the field goals was a product of a turnover that gave them the ball pretty much knocking on the door in the red zone, and a defense that barely touched or made it hard for Sam Darnold.
They only had 1 legitimate scoring drive in the game. Yeah. That's what it was. And you're right. We would be having a different conversation if you lose to the Vikings 28-26 or 28-27,
sure,
whatever, and a field goal here, a turnover there, and that's the difference in the game. But you're right, there wasn't a whole lot positive to come out of that game. And I think you brought up Dan Quinn. So this is our kind of Thursday of our deep dive into the opponent day. So let's do that here, Lance. The Commanders. I went back and I rewatched that game this week, and you can see the different personnel on Dan Quinn's defense.
You mean not having Micah Parsons actually changes things?
Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and all those guys. It makes a very big difference. I'm just going to run down some numbers here to show you the struggles that I thought the Commanders' defense had in week number 1. And of course, we know the Giants had to be able to take advantage of this, and we'll get to that part of it too. But they punted once, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in the whole game. They had the worst third down defense in the league. 9 of 13. 69%. Not great. They allowed the 3rd most yards after catch in the league last week at 181. The 2nd most points at 37. The worst opponent passer rating in the league at 146.4. That was Baker Mayfield's passing rating. Pretty good. They allowed a 158 passing rated on passes that went at least 20 yards in the air, tied for worst in the league, I believe. I think 156. Isn't that a perfect passer rating, 158.3?
I believe it is, yeah.
I think it is, too. So only 1 sack in the game. They just struggled a lot defending the pass here, Lance. And if you take a look at their secondary and the personnel back there, you understand why. Benjamin St-Juste, I think both of us would agree, is probably their number one cornerback. He's a guy that wasn't even starting the first half of last year for the Commanders, and frankly, their defense wasn't very good last year. Mike Sanders still was a rookie. He's inside. Emmanuel Forbes
got hurt, too, was in and out.
Yeah, and he has a wrist, I believe,
injury.
is what the injury is.
He's going to be wearing some type of covering during this game.
And he was kind of rotating in and out because of that injury with Noah Ibignagane, who was with the Dallas Cowboys last year. And, they lose Cam Curl, one of their safeties in free agency. They have Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin out there who's trying to kind of resurrect his career a little bit. And, it was a struggle. And, frankly, the only reason the Bucs punted on that one possession is Baker missed 2 deep balls down the field where the guy was open. So, it was not pretty for the Commanders' defensive secondary.
There's no doubt about it, though. I will say Baker and Mike Evans connected on some catches that were just remarkable. The one down the left sideline where actually I thought Benjamin St-Juste had great coverage. It just went right into the basket of Mike Evans. Baker, I don't want to say he played out of his mind because he had a great season last year, but you could tell how the environment shapes the quarterback. But you have to give credit to the Bucs personnel, and they didn't really need to rely on their run game because Rachaad White didn't have a great game. He did all of his damage as a receiver.
In fact, Bucky Irving had a better game than Rachaad White did.
Yeah, but I think because of the flow of the game, they were saying, hey, Baker, if you're down in the red zone and you have an opportunity to throw it to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, take your chances because Washington is having trouble. The other thing, though, just to piggyback over your point, John, that I don't think truly tells the whole story, yes, they had 1 sack, but if you go back and you watch the film, they were close to having at least 4 or 5 others. Baker must have wiggled out of trouble at least 3 to 4 times where he was about to be brought down and he rolls out of the pocket, surveys the field, or runs to gain yardage. I mean, they were getting, it felt some pressure on him. The pocket was collapsing. They could not finish plays. That was a big issue with respect to them trying to get out of some of these tough spots that Baker was thriving in.
And it looked like a Dan Quinn defense up front. Guys were twisting
absolutely.
And stunting, trying to get upfield. In fact, you saw a couple times early in the game. You're right. For the most part, the Bucs did not run the ball, but you see a couple plays where the Commanders trying to get upfield, they left these huge gaps in their defensive line where the running back had 5-6 yards of space to make a big gain in the run game.
Did too, yeah.
Correct, because they're getting out of position because of all those twists and stunts and things like that. But you're right. The one thing they actually did do pretty well, Lance, is stop the run. They were first down rush defense. They allowed only 2.2 yards per carry in the game. Third best in the NFL. Overall, just 3.7 yards per first down. So they actually did pretty well on early downs. I wonder if the Giants will try to, maybe lean into passing on first down because they actually, to your point, did do a pretty good job stopping the run in the game.
Well, and I think, John, that's a product of they've got a good front. You still have Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. Johnny Noonan may make his debut. Dan Quinn spoke to the media the other day. He was their second-round pick this year. He missed the bulk of camp with a foot injury. It's not the same injury. He's dealing with some type of soreness, he mentioned. They got Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler, 2 former Cowboys. Cleveland Ferrell, who was, I thought, at least active in the first game. And
he had their only sack.
Yeah, Bobby Wagner and also Frankie Louvu at the linebacker position. So I really like, on paper, I would sign up for that group. The problem is the pressure for that group to finish is overwhelming because, like we said, there's so much youth and inexperience on the back end. That's why if the Giants can stay in manageable downs and distances, and to your point, that goes back to first and second down. The third down conversion rate was not great. That goes without saying. But I think anyone who saw the production or the lack thereof on first and second down will tell you that was the Achilles heel of the Giants against the Vikings.
Pearson was listening on Tuesday when we had our show. I went through the stats with SciTac, and the Giants had the worst EPA per play on first down, passing the ball in the league, and they had the third worst rushing EPA per play on first downs in the league in week 1. So you're right. That has to be better. The Giants need to figure out a way to be better on early downs. And I'll just say this about the secondary. They play a much different scheme than what we saw the Vikings play last week. The Vikings did not pressure last week as much as everyone thought, and I think that's one of the reasons the Giants had some of the issues they did offensively. They played man only twice the whole game. It was all deep zones. They played some cover 3, but mostly cover 6, cover 4, cover 2. And the reason I grouped those together, those are the 2 safety deep coverages, right? And the Giants couldn't run the ball against that. They couldn't get the ball down the field. Dan Quinn's different. He comes from that cover 1, cover 3 world. They're not going to put those 2 safeties back in a shell at all. So if you can protect against that front a little bit, Lance, you should have opportunities down the field in this game. This is not going to be that cloud coverage we saw. Just look at Dallas' defense the last 2 or 3 years. They were a big play defense good and bad,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Interceptions, pick sixes, sacks, but big play down the field.
And gashed on the ground, too.
Gashed
Yeah.
on the ground, exactly. So you should be able to get some explosives against this Washington defense this week if you can protect against that front.
Well, the troubling aspect is the Vikings, as you mentioned, they weren't ultra aggressive. I think Brian Flores was maybe trying to pull a fast one, but they were still winning with their front four, though, despite that.
More than they should have.
Yeah, so now the problem is, to your point, if Dan Quinn now brings the house, so you're going to bring an extra defender. If you couldn't handle the front four of the Vikings, what's going to happen when the dynamics change?
Yeah, Washington was 4th in stunt rate, 4th in blitz rate. I will say this. I looked this up today because I was curious, and I should have had this on Tuesday, but I didn't. You know, last year we always joke every year about how poor the Giants have been in picking up stunts. They're always like last in the league, and
And the Cowboys love to
protection
use
versus
that,
stunts,
yeah.
right? They were actually 12th best in the league week 1 against the Vikings in terms of pressures allowed against stunts and twists.
Well, I'd be curious. Do you have the numbers? How many stunts, though?
I can look it
the
up. I don't
Vikings
have it in
employed?
front of me, but
Just
I can
from
look
a
that up.
context standpoint, I'm not trying to take anything away,
No,
but
absolutely.
if they only ran like 3 stunts and they handled that, something tells me we
It
may
was
not
more
want to
than
give out
that. It
some
was more
pats
than
on the
that.
back for that. So the volume should be slightly higher to say, okay, they've made adjustments, and you can move forward to say that this is not going to be a problematic issue. But that is a bread and butter element of a Dan Quinn defense, specifically a Dallas defense. Even the coordinators before loved to run that. So you wonder how much more Dan Quinn is going to try to toy with the Giants front this week, because he knows that his secondary is a liability. That's the weakness. So any good defensive coordinator will say, we're not going to leave it in the hands of the back end. We're going to make sure that the front does its job so that Daniel Jones does not have time like Baker Mayfield. And Dan Quinn is well aware Daniel Jones can leave the pocket, extend plays as effectively as Baker Mayfield. So something tells me he's going to bring the house early, and he's going to see how the Giants up front handle that, and that will determine the cat and mouse game that I think is going to come moving forward, because I think Dan Quinn on paper, he's got the big boys up front, and he has the depth too, which to me is also critical. Maybe even more depth than you could argue what the Vikings have to offer.
Oh, I agree with
because
that.
they don't have Danielle Hunter, though Andrew Van Ginkel, of course, and Jonathan Grenard, I think at least on paper, have filled in admirably for those two, but I think he's going to be saying to himself, let's see how the Giants' offensive line can handle the extra personnel that we have up front. And if they do, then he's going to have to worry about what happens following that. But I would not sleep on this Washington defense just because they struggled against Tampa Bay last week.
So they faced 12, which I think it looks like the top 10 most in the league. So they actually faced
so
a
then that's
decent
a fair
amount. They
number.
allowed 5 pressures on 12 attempts at 40%, which seems high, but that's for normal pressure rate. Like you'll see the league average last week was 42%. The Giants were at 41%. So they're slightly better than league average, which where they've been over the past 4 or 5 years handling stunts and twists is a huge improvement. All right, let's jump to the offensive side of the ball here for the Commanders, Lance. I could not believe what I was seeing when I rewatched this game. Jaden Daniels either had the ball out of his hands in 2 seconds. He would drop back, either screen, quick hit to the wide receiver, dump down to a running back, quick speed out to a tight end or a wide receiver, or the second that first read wasn't there, he was off and running. There wasn't even scrambling and throwing the ball. He did not have one, folks, don't think of Jaden Daniels as an off-schedule thrower. He's not. He did not throw the ball once last week after scrambling. Not once. If he scrambles to run. But they're going to try to get the ball in his hands quickly, get it out really fast, because I, frankly, Lance, don't think they trust their offensive line to protect the young man. They have Sam Cosmi inside. They bring in Tyler Biotis. Their tackles are questionable. Andrew Wiley, Cornelius
Nick
Lucas
Allegretti
is fine.
they brought in for the
Allegretti, the other
Chiefs.
guard, right?
Yeah.
We'll see Brandon Coleman might get mixed in a little bit more this week. He was a rookie 4th-round pick out of TCU. We talked about him at the Senior Bowl. So they're trying to mix, I think a lot of these quick passes in because they're afraid that if they're going to ask Jaden Daniels to sit back there, even when they went down like 3 scores last week and they're in catch-up mode, they were still getting the ball out in like 2 seconds. He wasn't holding the ball. So, and that's exactly what they did in the preseason games as well. 2.2 second average time to throw on plays that he actually threw a pass, lowest in the NFL last week. So I don't think this Giants pass rush, quite frankly, is going to have time to get home in this game. We talked about how, they need to impact the Vikings more last week, and that was 1,000% true. The way Jaden Daniels and the Commanders ran their offense last week, you're not going to be able to get sacks because he's getting the ball out so quick. So I think it's almost as much about containment, right? Don't let him get those rush lanes as it is trying to get sacks in this particular
Yeah,
game.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. To me, the best way that I would describe Jaden Daniels' approach was just impatient, whether or not it was by design or not.
Correct.
It just
I
seemed
agree.
like he had an internal clock in his head, and he was saying to himself, 1, 2, 3 Mississippi if you're lucky to get to, and I'm just doing something with my body or the football. Dan Quinn actually talked about this the other day. He said they have to graduate to the point where he wants to see him roll out of the pocket, change the pocket, and then throw the ball.
Which he has not done yet.
Correct. It can't just be look, survey, and then run. Now, he was effective, 88 rushing yards. He had a lot of wide open lanes. The breakdown that I saw was 7 were designed runs, 8 were scrambles.
That sounds right.
That was the breakdown, and the reason why 7 plus 8 is 15, for those of you counting at home and say Lance is off by a number. 1, he took a knee. Okay? So we made the mathematical adjustments. Just want to make sure you think I'm off key because I wasn't here for a few months. You were mistaken,
I
my
miss
friend.
you, man. You're the
Okay?
best.
But anyway, getting back to the point at hand
Funny.
here, okay? Daniels, he definitely looks to run. The other thing that was peculiar, I don't know if you noticed, he doesn't slide. He takes like a tumble forward. It's like a 3-year-old trying to roll over for the first time.
I thought I was watching Larry Donnell highlights of like 2016.
It was very bizarre.
He doesn't know how to slide.
Yeah,
Everything
I don't
is face
understand.
forward. I don't understand. No, he's gonna get himself hurt. He's got to be careful.
And his
with
helmet
that.
came off like 5 times. I don't know if they need to get a better strap or whatever. Maybe it happened twice when he was in the red zone, and then it happened another time in the open field.
It looked like he was in tumbling class on the wood,
Yeah.
where he actually did a forward somersault as he rolled to the ground.
Well, it was interesting because I don't know if you saw the Bears version of Hard Knocks. They took the slip and slide out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
and Caleb
yeah,
Williams
for
actually
sure,
did a
yeah.
nice job. And then
Yeah.
the first game preseason,
nice slide,
you saw
yeah.
it. So maybe the Bears and the Commanders have to consult maybe a picnic in the offseason or whatever it may be.
Commanders need to call
But-
the Washington Nationals and get
well,
someone to come
that's
over.
fair
and
enough,
to
yeah,
teach
and they're not
something.
that far.
No.
You know, you could certainly have some consultation from that standpoint, but that, to me, he's got to clean up because I agree with you. I think he's going to put himself in a tough spot where A, he'll get hurt, or B, the ball will cough up. Because remember, if you go forward, it's very different than giving your body up in terms of a slide, and also there's field positioning involved. So those two elements, I think the Giants need to be on top of things, but if they overcommit in a game like this, John, it's going to be a long afternoon. Because the minute that the pocket closes or all of a sudden you think you can maybe swipe at him, he'll take off, and by the time you realize what happened, he'll be 10 yards down the field.
Because he's a legitimate 4-4. Like, he's wide
Yeah.
receiver speed. This is legit big play type stuff. Not a lot of downfield throws, folks. They tried 2 shots to Terry McLaurin over the course of the game. Both were overthrown.
Only 4 targets overall.
Correct. And only 1 completion of 10-plus yards, 4 targets of 10-plus yards, 0 completions of 15-plus air yards. So everything was short. They had 3 completions that went for 15 yards. All 3 were dump downs to the running back, so they turned it upfield. Brian Robinson had 2, and I think Eckler had 1 of those, where they turned those 3 passes into big plays. But it was just dump-offs. And I think the Giants' new defensive scheme here, Lance, I think actually fits us a little bit better. If you play a lot of man, you turn your back to the quarterback, you can get into trouble. The Giants are in so much zone now, they're watching the quarterback back there. I think it'll give them a good chance to kind of slow that down. And the other part of this, it was clear they're trying to take stuff off of Daniel's plate. They tried to run a lot on first downs. Second highest rush rate on first downs in the league last week in the first half of that game. 62% of their first down plays were runs. That's extremely high. Second highest in the league. And they weren't exactly efficient on those running plays either. So if the Giants can get them into those 3rd and longs, they weren't a ton of 3rd and longs in that game, Washington. They weren't even attempting to throw the ball past the sticks.
No, it wasn't there was a 3rd and 21, and Daniels ran and then just gave himself up, I believe, on the sideline.
It was a very odd offensive approach. Then Cliff Kingsbury, too, very static, not a lot of motion. Terry McLaurin played, I think, 42 snaps. 41 of them were at left wide receiver. He's going to be at left wide receiver every single play. There's not a lot of pre-snap motion, so the Giants should be able to disguise a little bit more. They can set Banks up on McLaurin. He's not going to have to move if they want to go that route. I don't know what they're planning. So those are some of the weaknesses of Kingsbury's system, where it's very, very static pre-snap.
That's why I'm thinking, if I'm Washington, I would think you want to try to get the ball in the hands of McLaurin early, and maybe some shorter opportunities to see if he gets some yak.
He had a couple of deep passes against Banks last year in those 2 games.
Correct. And we know he has that elusive speed, too, that I wouldn't overlook. He's not looked at as maybe a speedster compared to the rest of the NFL, but you get him out in open space, he'll make you pay for that. The weapon that I'm intrigued by is Luke McCaffrey, because he also didn't get an overwhelming a lot of touches. But if you notice, John, there was a play where they gave it to him out in the flat. He was going to throw it. the opportunity didn't present
He was
itself.
going to throw it back to Daniels right on the other side.
Well, and he was also looking downfield, it looked like, too.
I didn't notice that
Initially,
part of it.
looked,
Okay.
So that's something the Giants need to be aware of, because McCaffrey's a former quarterback. And if Kingsbury is going to go back to the well and try to pull a fast one, they may try to get him another shot. And that means that you're so overwhelmed with Daniels and what he's going to do with his legs, he gives it up to McCaffrey. Somebody gets down the field. A little bit of the tricks of the trade. If I'm Washington, I'm sure McCaffrey's not happy. I'm sure McLaurin's not happy. De'Ami Brown. Noah Brown should play this week, by the way, the former Cowboy. So another veteran wide receiver.
Shows you how good Houston's wide receiver group is that they were able to cut that guy, by the way. But he is a legitimately good NFL wide receiver.
Well, and this is what happens when you bring Stephon Diggs in. And you already have Tank Dell. And, hell, Robert Woods is in the mix, too. And he's like a long-lost relative.
He's like their fifth receiver.
Yeah, he's like the stepchild all of a sudden that has been forgotten. But if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, as much as Daniels is dangerous with his legs, they can't keep having that be the blueprint, that he's going to run 16 to 17 times and hope to get an explosive play. You've got to get the ball in your playmakers.
Because he won't make it. He'll get hurt. He's not going to make it.
Well, that to me is a concern, but also how far, think about this, John, how much did the Ravens offense come along last year when Todd Monken took over as the offensive coordinator? The whole narrative was Lamar, it's all run heavy. He doesn't have that complementary piece in terms of going to the air. And I thought Monken did a really good job balancing out that offense last season with the arrival of Zay Flowers. I understand this is only year one for Washington, but they, to me, should look at what happened with Baltimore, what happened with Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts. Those quarterbacks are far more dangerous when you have to think about their ability to throw as much as you have to worry about them taking off and running.
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DK1. That's code DK1 for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
5.6 average depth of target. It was like the third lowest in the league. It was just not a lot downfield.
Terrible.
I thought Cornelius Lucas, their left tackle, played pretty well in the game. He did not allow a lot of pressures. Tryon, I thought, really took Andrew Wiley into the cleaners a little bit, their starting right tackle. So I think whoever the Giants line up over their right tackle, Andrew Wiley, I think they have an advantage. Cosmi and Biotis are solid players. Nick Allegretti, he was a backup in Kansas City. He's all right. But I think right tackle is the spot. If you're trying to rush the passer in this game, that's the spot where you want to try to attack it for the Giants.
Tampa Bay, if you look at their defense, remember, you got Vita Vea, you got big boys up front, and Biotis had, at times, even when he was with the Cowboys, John, had problems with bigger guys.
Yeah, because he isn't the biggest guy.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you think about the Dexter Lawrences of the world. Is there going to be opportunities from the interior to create on the edge? That, to me, may be the strategy for the Giants in a game like this.
All right, before we get to your calls here, I'll give you a chance. You can do the matchup. What do you think about the Giants heading into week 2? I'm going to get your take on NYG. We've talked mostly about the Commanders before we get to the calls here.
Well, they got to be more disruptive on defense, John. I mean, that to me is going to be, I think, even more important than whatever we want to sit here and analyze with respect to the offensive standpoint.
Darnold just looked comfortable last week, right?
Tremendously comfortable.
Right.
And
I agree.
I think the Vikings love that because I think Darnold, I said this all offseason on my various shows, if everything falls into place, Darnold could be the next Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith with that late renaissance because of a new environment.
Yeah, we did our predictions. He was only because Aaron Rodgers, people are going to want to vote for him the comeback player of the year, but Darnold was my number 2 guy in that list. Yeah, I think he has a real good shot.
I think Darnold could very well end up as the winner just because he's got an overwhelming amount of talent. The defense is vastly improved with Brian Flores. So 2 quarterback hits and a sack is just not going to cut it. And I don't care whether you're playing a different style quarterback who runs. You have to make him feel it. You have to make him second guess whether or not he wants to take off and run if all of a sudden he's going to meet a linebacker or even a secondary player. So they've got to be more disruptive. And on offense, this was the biggest issue last season at times, and I figured it was going to be more troubling because you don't have Saquon Barkley. Darren Waller leaves via retirement. You bring in Malik Neighbors, but that's a 2-for-1 trade-off, John. Where are the explosive plays going to come from, okay? They didn't have a lot of opportunities to throw down the field, but it was Neighbors had the 25-yard pair of catches. That was it. Mm-hmm. Nothing else outside of him, nothing else on the ground. They need to flip field positioning. This is not an offense that is going to methodically move up and down the field, 9 plays, 91 yards, 8 plays, 85 yards. Why? Because we saw the overwhelming penalties, John, right? I mean, they had 9 penalties, and that's not going to clean itself up. And remember, 6 of them came on offense out of the 9. False starts, holding, too many men on the field, you name it. Things that are avoidable, but you can't expect you're going to all of a sudden meet perfection a week later. So you need more explosive plays on offense. You have the ability to do that against a Washington defense that became susceptible to that last week. At least on paper, right? It's favorable. And then on defense, once again, you have to disrupt the quarterback because good things tend to happen as a result of that. And that's the blueprint, you could say, for every NFL team. But if you don't do that consistently enough, I don't care whether you're playing the bottom feeders of the NFL or near the top of the pack. Forget wins and losses. You're not going to be competitive in these games for 4 quarters, and that's what we saw over the course of Sunday's game.
No question. And, Daniel Jones has probably had more success against the Commanders than any other team in the league over the course of his NFL career. We've been through all of it here together.
Sure. Except it's a different regime now.
Correct.
John, I mean, that's the thing.
This is probably the 3rd regime that he's faced with Commanders. Actually, Ron Rivera
was there. No, Ron Rivera was there when he came in
2019. You might be right about that. So we'll see. You're right. We'll see if they can, and they have not had a good success handling a Dan Quinn defense. But again, the personnel is a lot different. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Giants Huddle Podcast, folks, go check it out. You can now find it on the Giants Podcast Network feed. We have a lot of good interviews coming up. The ones that are up there right now, we have Bob Papa with Tom Coughlin via Papa's Perspective. That's up there. Has the George Martin, Brian Kelly one posted yet, Pearson?
The audio's up. I'm not sure about video.
Perfect. Yet. So if you're on the audio podcast feed, Paul and I, last Friday at the Fan Fest, we interviewed George Martin and Brian Kelly, 2 all-time Giants, talking about some Giants history a little bit. And then on Friday's Huddle this week, I'm going to have Devin Singletary, which I think is probably going to be audio only, so you'll find it on your podcast feed. So go check that out. Just search for Giants Huddle Podcast or search for Giants Podcast Network, and you should be able to find that feed on your favorite podcast platform. All right, let's go to the calls. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Donnie in Queens. He'll lead us off today. Hi, Donnie.
Hey, Lance. Welcome back. Good to hear you back on the show today.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. How are things?
In my personal life, great. My sports life, that was
understandable.
Look, I've been to back-to-back openers. I haven't made it to the 4th quarter in either, and I haven't seen an offensive touchdown in either yet. So
yeah, not great.
Yep, it's not going great. And look, I know it's week 2, but it's a must-win for this team. And I felt confident going into the Viking game until I got to the parking lot. I was at one of those sponsored tailgates. There was probably 150, 200 people there. And, I noticed about halfway through, people were barely talking about the game and the matchups. And if you were, it was almost like apathetic. And I think it kind of spilled into, the second, third play of the game. The fans were already booing the team. And in hindsight, they probably would have been better off on the road last week. And, hopefully they'll serve them well this week. And I think something that John Mara and, the powers that be have to really start taking into consideration here. I'm not sure what they could do about it, but right now, the Giant fans, we love the team, but we hate them too. And we're disappointed and frustrated and tired of the same old.
No, Scotty, trust me. Donnie, real quick, just trust me. The Mara family is well aware of how angry the fan base is. Trust me.
Yeah,
they know.
I'm sure. And look, the fans who are following Daniel out to the parking lot, those people are absolute losers. The point was made in the stadium. So they need a performance here to kind of galvanize because I know you don't like looking ahead and you never know, but I'm a fan. I'm allowed to do that.
No, sure you
Cleveland,
can. I got it.
Dallas, Cincinnati, Seattle, Philly. The wheels could fall off this thing, and then at that point, who knows what happens in terms of regime changes. And I'm just sick of it. I don't want to go back down that road again. So, let's hope for a better performance this week. Washington has been old reliable for Daniel and for the Giants kind of in particular. They've been like the one team we've been able to consistently beat here. So let's just hope for a better performance. My bold prediction of a 4-0 start and missing the playoffs is already over. That was over probably when they kicked the field goal after the fumble.
Donnie, here's a hope. You already got the first part of the prediction wrong. Now you got to root for yourself to get the second part of the prediction wrong, too.
I hope so. I hope so. I just got on Twitter and
God bless you. Run away. Leave.
Yeah.
Go, please.
I was off for a while. I got back on, and then I found myself in a Spaces where Charlie from Portland, Maine is speaking. And it's like there's fans now who are rooting already for the team to be bad because they want to be right, and they want to prove their narratives. And it's like, man, just let that stuff play out. Like, just root for the team. Hope to be wrong. And if you're not, the things that you're hoping for will probably come to pass anyway. So,
Donnie, you got back on social media to listen to Charlie and his Spaces. You're really a glutton for punishment.
It was
I could have given you some other activities if you're that bored. So, yeah.
It was incidental, Lance, I promise. But
I hope so.
That snarky humor has been missing from the show. So it's definitely good to hear you back, and hopefully we'll hear more from you guys, and I'll check in next week.
All right, Donnie.
Sounds good.
Good to hear from you, man. Look, Donnie, everyone if you were at the stadium last week, you know how angry the fan base is. And I get it. Like, you're tired of seeing losing. I get it. You have every right to be upset and angry. We're not going to tell you not to be. We get it. And, this is almost like one of those car wash games, Lance, right? You have a day, it's like the day, 2 or 3 days after it snows in the city, you're driving the car around, you got the salt stains on the side of the car. Your black car is all white, like you had mud everywhere. Like, where the windshield wipers are on the windshield, you have all like the dirt and everything. That's what the Giants look like coming out of week 1, all right? You got to get to the car wash, and you got to get that thing cleaned off. This is a car wash game. Now, unfortunately, it's not as simple as just paying some dude to wash your car. You got to go out there and you got to wash your own car, right? You got to
get the sponges out. Hand.
This is
everything.
Self-service now, right?
Yes.
This is self-service, and you got guys trying to stop you from cleaning your car too, which is the problem. So you got to go
the characters of the city that coming in and asking for some handouts as you're trying to, wash off the car.
Got the guys with the squeegees coming up
yeah,
there, right?
100%. Yeah.
So, look, it isn't that easy, but that's what you need. You need to just wipe the stink off of week 1, get your fan base to if you come out and you win this game, 31-17 or something like that, people aren't going to forget week 1. But at least you can kind of push that and you can say, all right, maybe that was an aberration. Maybe the Vikings defense just happens to be really good and we don't know that yet, right? We don't know what the Vikings season is going to look like. So that's what you need to do this week to try to just turn the entire narrative on its head.
Well, we talk about this a lot, both on and off the air, the get right game label, right? How many times have we brought that up? And on
Banks
paper,
loves it. Banks loves it.
But on paper, you would argue, because you brought up the history against Washington, you would think this is a get right game.
You know what Washington's saying?
That's their get-right game.
Correct.
Oh, without a doubt. Sure. Because they're in the same situation. I don't know what it's like in the DMV in terms of, the disruptions when you're trying to wash your car. So I can only relate to New York City, where when it snows, it certainly doesn't last white for quite some time, if you catch my drift. But the point is here, the fact that they can't take any opponent for granted.
No, of course not.
And this has been going on for every single season, because how many times have we also talked about the Giants go up against a team with a backup quarterback, right? You're licking your chops, and then that backup quarterback looks like he's going to Canton, Ohio.
Yeah, Nick Mullins a few years ago.
Against the San Francisco 49ers. Correct.
Kickner,
and they were down, by the way, more than Nick Mullins in that game.
Oh, that's correct.
They lost an entire team, because that was against the Jets the previous week at MetLife Stadium.
I still remember Tino in the pregame that week, and he was so confident. And we were like, dude, you got to
story of our lives.
Yes. That was,
but in all seriousness, that's why I would say, what I would also add is, there's no doubt about it that there's an opportunity. If you can win it, you'll take it. But it's a reminder also that it's such a matchup-driven league that then the following week, whatever you did against Washington really doesn't hold much weight.
Oh, no, it's gone.
Because you're back to square one with probably a better offense and a better defense.
Yeah, you just settle down the natives at that point. You know what I mean?
True. And but then the natives with the pitchforks all of a sudden, they're sharpening their tools after the win or the loss, regardless.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Let's go to Scott, New Mexico. He's up next. Hey, Scott.
Hey, guys. It's nice to have you back, Lance. I thought at first you were a hologram. You actually weren't there. And
I can confirm, Lance is here.
Superimposed.
Yeah. 10 fingers, 2 hands, yes.
But it is glad to have you back.
Well, it's good to be back.
couple of things. I really don't care if the Giants stink it up again as long as they win by 1 point. So to me, it's about wins and losses.
No, Scott, you're right. But you know what? If you come out of this game and you play poorly for a second straight week, that does not bode well for what the next 6 games are going to look like. You know what I mean?
But Chicago, for example, didn't even score an offensive touchdown, still won.
Scott, you're right. That's the thing. Week 1 in the NFL around the league was ugly. It was the fewest touchdowns scored through the air in something like 6 or 7 years in Week 1 this year. It was not pretty around the league. So you hope that the Giants, along with some other teams, will be able to look a little bit smoother on offense in week number 2.
Right. And the one statistic you didn't say, the Giants scored 3 points, and the team we're going to face, Washington, scored 20. And Lance, going back to your old mantra, it's about scoring points, and if you're going to win football games. So one of the things I'm concerned about, Jaden Daniels alone, I saw the Washington game, by himself had almost 90 yards rushing. The Giants had 74, I think, total, and I think Singletary had 37, if I'm accurate. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Figure. And the one thing I think you always have to establish is the run game. I still believe you stop the run and you run the football. And it opens up so many things. And with Jaden Daniels being able to run the ball as well, will they unleash Daniel Jones? Because one of his strengths, you have to admit, is his ability to run. And they sort of limited him. I don't know if it was because of the injury or they didn't have any RPOs.
Scott, do you think so? They ran like 5 or 6 design runs with them last week.
He had 6 runs for 15 yards.
Yeah, but I think they really have to open it up even more so because they're not getting the production they need out of the running backs that they have.
But Scott, don't you think Jones gets his production because the traditional running game is doing well, so teams lock in on that, and then he has space?
Agree.
So I think the first part has to come first before you unleash the Jones part of the running game. You know what I mean?
I also think the Vikings were anticipating Daniel Jones running and took away opportunities from him too.
Possibly.
Let's not overlook that. I can't see a situation, Scott, where the Giants offense, I get what you're saying, but if the plan is Daniel Jones is a runner, is going to be the heart and soul of this scheme, it's not going to hold up. It's not going to be sustainable. It can't. That cannot be the spark for this offense.
Didn't he run for over 700 yards, and that's how they got into the playoffs?
Well, you're talking about, but you also had Saquon Barkley, though, as the other side of the equation.
Right, I
and
agree.
I think, in fairness, no disrespect to Devin Singletary, but if you ask most defensive coordinators, they're a little bit more concerned about Saquon the weapon than they are about Devin Singletary. It's really apples and oranges.
And, Scott, I agree, especially with the way the Vikings played the Giants last week. They needed to run the ball better to get him out of that deep, too deep safety stuff. I agree with you. But the way the Giants built the team this year, they built this team to throw the football. They did not build this team to run the football. They built this to be a throwing team. And with the way the Commanders play, a lot of man-to-man, a lot of cover 3, this is a game where if they're ever going to throw the ball this year, I mean, the Browns have a really good defense. The Cowboys played really well defensively. You saw what the Steelers did to Kirk Cousins this week. They're coming up, Vic Fangio in Philadelphia. They're coming up against a lot of good defenses in the next 6 weeks after this game. If they're going to throw the ball well, it's going to happen against the Commanders this week. And if they don't, there's going to be some
we all know
concern.
what happens if they don't, right?
Yeah.
But my concern is, I think I mentioned this the first time we were talking about Malik Neighbors. I said every NFL head coach is going to find some sort of scheme to take Malik Neighbors out. And I know probably Slayton is probably not going to play. I'm going to guess he's not going to play.
Well, we don't know yet. We'll have to see.
Which is going to limit them a little bit. But
they have Jalen Hyatt and Wanda Robinson, a second-round pick and a third-round pick. That's why you pick these guys on day 2.
I'm not saying they're not good, but Malik Neighbors is a stalwart, and he's the one that has to really do the things that everybody's expecting him to do, but defenses, especially a person like Dan Quinn, is going to try to eliminate him from the game.
No, but Scott, that's the thing, though. If they do take him out of the game, you have no safety over the top on Jalen Hyatt, who's a really fast player. You have Wanda Robinson one-on-one, who's really quick against a bunch of rookie slot corner, right? So, Lance, and I think this is where you're heading. That's why you have other guys. Where if you put two on Malik's side, the other two guys have to take advantage of it. You have to.
Right. Well, other guys have to win their one-on-one battles because that's what's going to happen on the opposite
Right.
side of the field. Or you figure, all right, if they're so concerned about Malik Neighbors, then maybe that opens up the run game a little bit for Devin Singletary because they're a little bit further down the field. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Listen, here's the thing, Scott, and I agree with your premise here. The bottom line is Neighbors is the guy that everybody else should fear. That's not in Giants uniforms, okay, and is not associated with the organization. He has to shift the balance of the defense. Then it's up to the other guys to capitalize and take advantage.
True. The one thing, and I'll be glad to get off the air after this, but as you play the game, and I'd like to see the Giants improve on their rushing statistics, do you think they're going to use a two tight end set, or are there other ways they can free up Singletary and their backups? So at least, and I mentioned this to you, John, a while back, could the Giants rush for 100 to 120 yards per game? And if they can do that, they can have a little bit more balanced attack and open up the passing game a little bit more because you're still going to pass about 60% of the time anyways. So in your opinion, are there ways to free up the runners that we have currently now by using some different types of schemes so that the Giants won't be so hampered with not having a running attack that's viable? And that's really the basis of the question I wanted to ask. And again, Lance, nice to have you back. So
thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Good
Scott.
hearing from you.
Good stuff, man. Look, there are two ways to run the ball. You either put your big people on the line and you pound it, or you spread people out, you try to get lighter boxes, create some more space, and then you hand it off against lighter boxes. I'm always more of a hand it off against lighter boxes guy. I always think the run game is a numbers game. If you can have as few guys in that area as you can, you have more space for your running back to make moves, create space, and make plays. So I'm one to lean towards that. I'm guessing that's the plan they'll use this week. Last week, they had a lot of tight ends on the field. They were afraid the Vikings were going to blitz. They were trying to cover themselves in terms of zero blitzes, bringing linebackers, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, Washington does that. I think they trust their veteran front offensive line to handle more of those twists and stunts and such. So for me, I think they spread them out this week a little bit and they kind of see how it goes. And if they can run it with a light box for Washington, I think that's what they do.
Well, because I think it goes back to they would like to take their chances against the Washington secondary, maybe more so than what Minnesota had to offer. Minnesota brought in Stephon Gilmore, who I thought looked good. He has familiarity with Brian Flores. The Commanders don't necessarily have that polished veteran in the mix. But if Dan Quinn and that blitz win, John, they may have to go back to the bigger personnel to make adjustments so that it doesn't become a field day inside. The other thing that I wanted to point out, the difference between the Commanders and the Giants in terms of just the defense and field positioning is Tampa Bay had 2 scores as a result of 2 missed field goals, which I think changed the game because those were not chip shots, John. And if you look, Tampa Bay took over right around midfield almost on both of those. So that's not to give an excuse for Washington, but that game may have gone a little bit different if Cade York answers the call. Now you're forcing Baker Mayfield and company to have to go the length of the field. So that was another issue that I thought handicapped this Commanders defense last week. Giants can't necessarily say they were put in that position as a result.
Giant fans, you can still get season tickets, giants.com/tickets. Great member benefits. You can stay attached to the team all year round. You get great season ticket member gifts. The package this year was great. You had all the replica Super Bowl rings. It was really fantastic. Go check that out. You can also download Giants TV, the Giants official connected TV streaming app. It's free for Big Blue fans on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, all those smart TVs, Giants mobile app. You get game highlights, video content, our shows, all that. Go check it out. Let's go to... I'm just going to hand Charlie in Portland, Maine off to Lance.
Take your pick here.
Lance, go ahead.
Not surprised.
You got it.
You could please do the honors. I don't need
I'm
those
moving the
honors,
mic to the side. I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Lovely.
Hey, buddy, where you been? Hey,
I've been avoiding you clearly, so yeah.
Well, I had to call in. When I saw you were on the show, I had to call in and talk to
now my
old
life
buddy.
is so much more fulfilled as a result. So.
Thanks, Lance.
Yeah,
I know. I knew you've been missing this, Lance. Right?
Without a doubt.
So I just had to. There you go. Hey, John, was I right that they would be booing Daniel Jones by halftime? In fact, it was actually the first series of the game.
Charlie, as much as it pains me to say it, your prediction about Week 1 turned out to be right on the money.
Of course, as usual, Lance. See, Lance?
Please. See, he called in to truly pat himself on the back as if this was going to be anything different.
Don't hurt
than what we
yourself,
expected.
Charlie.
Yeah. Don't strain the elbow ligaments and so forth.
Lat strain trying to reach around to his back.
John, I know who this guy is. He's a mediocre tapioca backup quarterback in this league, and finally, how many people does the Giant Stadium hold? 60,000.
I think 70 now, right? Does it hold 70?
Didn't you count everybody because you orchestrated the sound effects in that game? So how do you not know that number?
Right. But all I'm saying is at least 50,000 or 60,000 of them finally got it. They finally understood who this quarterback is. So it took a long time. It's taken almost 6 years, but they finally figured it out, that he is not a quarterback starter in this league. And look, is he going to play better? Against. He's lucky he's not playing another home game. That's all I'm telling you. He's lucky.
Charlie, 82,000, by the way.
500.
82,500, yeah.
Wow. I thought it was really up there. But what I'm saying is they booed him from the first series to the end of the game, and they even waited for him to come out of the stadium.
That was you, right? That was you out there doing that, Charlie?
No, that wasn't me. I would have never done that. I would have booed him in the stadium, but I wouldn't wait around for him. That's for damn sure.
Wow, Charlie's showing a modicum of class. Good for you.
Yeah, he's saying that through the telephone. No, okay? Yeah, we see the real men from the boys when they actually show up in East Rutherford, New Jersey. He's doing that from his couch, eating on a bag of potato chips, yeah.
No, I don't eat potatoes. I eat healthy food, Lance.
Rice cakes, I'm sorry. Excuse-moi. Yes, okay? Does that better fit?
Okay, but this Charlie, sitting on your couch, rubbing arnica all over your body.
Yeah,
about that?
Exactly. Nibbling on rice cakes.
Yes,
He even puts it on the rice cake. And supposedly it's good. It's digestible.
Now that's disgusting.
Well, no, he finds means of ways to help the body, yeah.
It's not edible, but they do have tablets you can take.
See, what I tell you, I told you he was going to come up with something. Yeah,
you could do that. Homeopathic. You can do that.
I heard there's a lot of factories in Portland, Maine, right? You and running the experiments on mice and all other types of animals. Yeah,
Dr. Charlie.
No, we don't. Yeah, we don't do any experiments on animals. So
only humans.
We don't do that.
Only humans?
Yeah,
that wasn't the response we were looking for, actually.
Maybe someone experimented on Charlie, and that's how we've gotten to this situation.
So he got loose from the facility, and now he's trying to get back in and act.
I don't know.
This is like The Island, the movie, with Scarlett Johansson. They leave, and they try to get him back. Yeah,
that's a good reference.
So,
TD, Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DK1. That's code DK1 for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Hey,
even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
The island of Dr. Moreau, led by Charlie, right?
Exactly.
Hey, let me give you the prediction for this game coming up.
Yes, because the entire nation is dying to hear it.
is waiting. I'm sure they are, since I've been right most of the time. I would say, I think, Jones is going to play better. He can't play much worse, right? But I think if we score 13 points, that's probably going to be it.
Oh.
I think Neighbors is going to get a touchdown finally, but I think the score is going to be 24-13 Washington, and Jones is going to throw an interception again. I sent you this, John. The last 8, I don't know, Lance, you love stats. The last 8 games Jones has played, he's had 2 touchdowns. He's had 9 interceptions. He's had 5 fumbles, and he's thrown 3 pick sixes. That's what he's done in the last 8 games he's played. It's time to move on from Daniel Jones. Hey, Lance, it's good talking to you, man. Stay healthy.
I wish I could say the same, yes, but thank you. It's good hearing from you, Charlie. Yeah.
All right,
Thank
man.
you, Charlie.
I mean, listen, there's no doubt about it. The production needs to improve. I don't think anybody's going to sit here and dispute that. And you can't have the opposing defense reach the end zone more than your own offense, because that's only going to make it 10 times harder for a team that, remember, last season averaged just over 15 points a game. We're talking about only 6 this year. 13, that's not going to be the magic number this week, John. I'll tell you that.
No,
I mean, if that comes
you have
to
get
fruition,
over 20. You got to get over 20.
And that may not even be enough, especially if Jaden Daniels running becomes an issue for this Giants defense.
Correct. No, look, I'm with you. You have to score. Yeah, look, we talked before the year. If the Giants could get around 22, 23 points per game, I thought that was a nice sweet spot to try to aim for. That'll put you kind of right in the middle of the league.
Sure, but think about it. Not to cut you off, that's a 7 to 8 point improvement, John, from one season. I've said this on multiple shows.
Lance,
good luck finding other examples of that happening.
I have quoted you saying that over the summer. Don't worry. You can ask Pearson.
How often does that happen?
It's
just like Josh Allen going from 20 touchdown passes to 37 plus 17. It doesn't happen regularly.
Now, the times it does happen is when you get a new quarterback in, right? And the Giants obviously had a lot of backup quarterbacks last year, so that's where the big jump happens and the other pieces that they added. But you're right. But look, if you want to be a successful NFL team, you better average more than 20 points per game. Like, if you don't, you're not. Like, if you look at the playoff teams last year, I haven't checked this, but I can't imagine any of them averaged less than 20 points per game. Did they?
The only one, I think, is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And they barely got in. They were like the
correct. And they had a
team.
really good defense, too.
Correct.
Pittsburgh, I believe, is the only exception from last season. I'll look it up just to confirm.
No question. All right, let's go to Wilson and Roxbury. He's up next. Hi, Wilson.
Hey, Johnny, listen, thank you for Pearson and for you to letting me call twice in 1 week. But when I saw my buddy next to you, I said, I got to call, man, because Lance, man, I miss driving you crazy. How you been?
Well, don't give yourself too much credit. This is not the flattering portion of the program, but I've been good.
Now, Lance, I will say, Wilson has been much calmer over the course of the last few months since you've left. He really has been.
Well, in comparison, the fact that Charlie was your opening act, of course you're going to appear calmer. It's all about perspective.
My wife told me, if I don't take my meds, she was going to divorce me, so I had to take it. So that's why I'm so calm.
Well, that is strong orders from the doctor. I would echo his or her sentiments.
Just don't use Charlie's meds, all right? Just don't.
Or his facility, for that matter. Yeah.
But hey, Lance. Okay, listen, Lance. I told Johnny this last week, and I told you this last year. I said, it's crazy to call the first game of the season a must-win game. To me, it was. Johnny said it was a little strong. I told Johnny, if they have to go on a fourth down from their own 30. You do it because you got to win this game. Obviously, Brian Dable doesn't share my point of view because he punted from the 50 on a 4th and 2 when they were getting slapped around up and down the field. But he punted it anyway, so obviously it is what it is. But listen, I called today to tell you this. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but here it goes. If there's an adjective to describe a more than a must-win, because must win is out the window now. This game is, I don't know what adjective you got to call. This is a season-defining game. This is a job-saving game for a lot of people because if Charlie's right and they only scored 13 points, John Mara has got to really think really hard about what this direction of the team is going because it's easy to blame Daniel Jones. I mean, that's the easy way out. I mean, Daniel Jones wasn't playing defense. I mean, Sam Darnold looked like Aaron Rodgers. He could have sat back there, smoke a cigar, and have a coffee. Now, I don't think that's Daniel Jones' fault. But, the easy way out is to blame. Did Daniel Jones play horrible? Yes. But he didn't get a lot of help. Some of the play calling was very peculiar to me. To punt the ball on a 4th and 2 from the 50 when the Minnesota was getting the ball on the third quarter, it was crazy to me. Because what was the point? What, you didn't want to go down by 11? You didn't want to go down 14. You want to go down by 11. But listen, that game is gone. I forget it. It's over.
There's a lot of other reasons why they lost that game. In fairness, I mean, you could sit here and overanalyze that.
Lance, but the easy way out is to blame Daniel Jones. He played good? No. But he wasn't playing defense, right? He wasn't.
That's why you can look at many facets. I'm not disputing that.
Right.
The defense, no disruptive plays, not getting after Darnold, not stopping the run. Aaron Jones had nearly 100 yards.
Heck, even offensively, the drop passes, right? Not running the ball well.
Absolutely.
Right. No. Right. I know that, but I'm saying, but the whole 90% of the people is blaming Daniel Jones for everything.
Wilson, you know how it works in football. When a team plays poorly, they go after the quarterback. You know that again. And again, Wilson, that's not us saying Daniel just played well last week. You know, if you listen to the show on Tuesday, of course not. He did not. But it was also a team effort with the poor play.
Right.
Well, and that's why it's fair to spread the blame or point the finger everywhere. To me, multiple facets contributed to that loss.
Right. John, Lance, I asked Johnny this question, and I like to ask you because I'm not going to call next week. I don't want to people to get sick of me. But
that's very nice of you.
The ratings are plummeting as we speak.
No, listen, because I asked Johnny this. I want to ask you this, Lance. Can you play the quarterback position if you know that you are a lame duck quarterback, that they want to replace you? And that the first mistake that you do, the whole stadium's going to come down because then you can. To me, I told this, Johnny, you cannot play the quarterback position that way.
No, I disagree with you. I completely disagree with you. First of all, Sam Darnold is on a 1-year contract, so he played pretty well. Well, no, hold on. I'll give you another example. No, wait. Listen, you asked the question. Now, don't backpedal on me here, okay? Dak Prescott, okay, in the division, played on the franchise tag in 2020. Okay, he didn't have long-term security, broke his ankle, okay, then had to go through the negotiation process all over again. They tagged him, and then they worked out a contract, and he thrived as a result. So I could give you multiple examples of guys that did not have long-term security and came through.
Man,
I
Daniel
disagree.
Jones 2 years ago.
No, but Daniel
when he was a pending free agent
security
with Saquon. 2022.
But Lance, Sam Darnold is on his, fourth, 5-15. He's playing to revive his career.
Okay, Wilson, how about this? Wilson, how about this? Do you think Kirk Cousins had a good year last year?
Until he got hurt,
yeah,
he was
had a good year.
Well,
he had a really good year.
He was a lame.
Look at the Vikings offense when he got hurt. Yeah.
Right, but Kirk Cousins, Minnesota knew his ceiling, and they knew that what he was, it was what he was. But no, Johnny. But listen. It's a little unfair because none of the quarterbacks you mentioned have gone through what Daniel Jones goes through.
Yeah, but Wilson, I hear you, but the Giants can't control what the fans do, right? The Giants can only control what they can control. You know what I mean?
No, but that's not true. Sam Darnold actually did go through what Daniel Jones has gone through.
That's a fair point.
Did you watch the Jets? Did you watch the Panthers? Did you see their offensive lines? The guy has been through multiple teams. Geno Smith, to a certain degree, went through what Daniel Jones went through.
That's a good one.
And he didn't have long-term security in Seattle. There's another example. Baker Mayfield was on a 1-year deal last year, Wilson.
That's a good one,
and
too.
He got a lucrative contract as a result. No, I'll let you continue, but here's why I completely disagree with you, because my interpretation of what you're saying is that teams need to look out for the well-being of the mental health of a quarterback. This is the highest level of professional football, Wilson, okay? Not everybody gets handouts. You have to be able, if you want to separate yourself from the rest of the pack and hang on in this league, you need to prove that you could deal with adversity. You could deal with hardship. You could deal with stress. That's what I think allows certain players to be in the league longer than others because they're not worried about the noise. They're not worried about 3 offensive linemen went down 1 week. I don't have 2 wide receivers. It's the guys that adapt to change that are able to overcome that, and that's what teams are looking at analyzing.
And Wilson, I don't think that's why Daniel struggled in week 1. I don't.
No, not at all. Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Johnny, you know I love Daniel. You know that. You know
I don't know. We're doubting you, actually. I don't know. I'm very skeptical.
But if what Lance saying is true, as painful as it is for me to say what I'm going to say, then maybe some of what Charlie's saying is true. That maybe he is mentally broken. He won't be able to get over the hump here in New York, because then if he needs to get over the hump and if it happens again next week, then you and like I said, I like him, but maybe it's time for a fresh start. Then maybe I don't want to. Maybe that's the way it's got to be, Johnny and Lance. And thank you.
Thank you, Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson,
appreciate
it.
I was, I'm a little disappointed in you.
Really?
When you're talking about how, you have to deal with adversity and nothing's handed to you, I thought I was going to get a Michael Jordan reference there out of you.
Well,
I mean, really did.
What adversity did he deal with? He won all 6 NBA finals that he went to, so.
Yeah, but he was a guy that always said you got to play, they have to play through adversity, you mentally tough, nothing comes
Sure,
easy.
I've missed 1,000 shots in my career before I've made them and this and that. Yeah, I just, that's not a great example. That's not the first thing that I go for in my back pocket.
That's fair.
And
in fairness, Jordan's almost always the first thing you go for in your back pocket.
When the moment calls for it. Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, and Baker Mayfield with Sam Darnold mixed in. I don't think Jordan is the missing part of that element. So excuse me for overlooking that from that standpoint. But what I just wanted to emphasize again is that's something the Giants are going to have to determine whether or not they think there's mentality that's involved in that. I really don't think that's a big part of the conversation because I think you could point to other quarterbacks that easily could have been overwhelmed by the scenario. I mean, this to me is lack of production, lack of execution, no matter how you want to spin it. But, as you brought up, Daniel Jones was in a situation before where he didn't have long-term security, and he was able to help the team get over the hump and make the playoffs.
With a new coach and GM that didn't even pick him. I mean, that was a tough spot 2 years ago.
So you can't tell me now, 2 years down the road, it's because the pressure is overwhelming. Well, then how do you make sense, of course, of 2022? So many guys have been in this situation. I think it's low-hanging fruit to say it's getting to him, and that's why a guy is not delivering.
Yeah, and honestly, I think there's less. He already got paid, right? So there's less pressure this year than there was 2 years ago before he got his big contract, right? He hadn't gotten his big payday yet. So I think
meaning that he's pressing as a result
I don't
of
buy
thinking
any of
about the
that.
deal and every game is being put under the microscope.
Yeah, and look, I don't. You talked to Daniel in the offseason. He seemed very confident to me. He seemed as sure of himself as I've seen him, Pearson. To be honest with you, he just seemed very confident. So I don't think this is a mentality for him at all. Thing for him at all. To be honest with you,
I would agree with you. And the other thing is, and this is maybe just me from my own personal experience, but I love when people doubt me. I love when the skeptics are out. Okay. That's just me.
They
That's how
told
I'm
Lance
built.
he was too small to play basketball.
So, that's right. And everybody who messed with me regretted that to this day. Okay? Hey, I got the VHS tapes at home if you really want to see the evidence. So don't make me go into that department. But getting back to the point at hand, I think any quarterback loves the fact when they're not looked as the guy, that the focus and the accolades are not on them, because every week you go out, you could shut up the skeptics.
I agree.
I would be loving and thriving in that situation. And listen, if it doesn't work out, then you learn something about the player as a result. But that to me is not a reason why you have to now shift the environment, given the fact that you're worried about the noise from media commentators or fans. That's silly.
So they have this on Good Morning Football. Kevin Zeitler is pudgy Dan Campbell. That is, I honestly thought that was like a picture of Dan Campbell like 6 years ago or something like
player,
that.
Yeah.
That he is pudgy Dan Campbell. That's amazing.
The goatee.
Oh my gosh.
Similar haircut.
Yeah. They have like a split screen up right now on the replay.
If he was
crazy.
wearing a cap though, Zeitler, and we're looking at a Zeitler Campbell picture right next to one another, then I think the resemblance would be even more.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't then see his entire face.
That's
comparison.
That's pretty good though. Alex in Philly, he will wrap us up today. Hi, Alex.
How you doing, guys? What's going on, Lance? Glad to see you back.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. I love you guys both together. But so I just wanted to talk about like last week, not to get a little too hung up on it, but the whole entire Giants team played terrible. The whole team played terrible. To put that blame onto Daniel Jones and to harass him walking to the parking lot, it's a little much from the fan base. I'm not going to lie. It was a little much. I understand the frustration. It's been rough last couple of years, except 22. But come on, the whole team played bad. Defense was moving holes open for the run, no pressure whatsoever. Offense, you could say things about Daniel Jones, but come on, that interception into the end zone, there's no way. I'm glad Sean O'Hara brought it up yesterday. There's no way that was what Jermaine Limor was supposed to be doing. He's backing off and letting whatever his name is, just catch the ball right there for an easy touchdown. I'm pretty sure that wasn't the game plan. I don't know. I was just frustrated, you know what I mean, to get like I was frustrated at the loss, but I was more frustrated how we just started ganging up on our quarterback a little bit, just like the rest of the media. You know, he is our quarterback right now, and for whatever. And if you're a Giants fan, I feel like you should want him to do better. Just for the simple fact of the only way this team is going to be relevant anytime soon is if Daniel Jones decides to step it up a little bit. And I do believe in him. I've always been a Daniel Jones fan, but you know, he just had a bad game. You sit there and hide. He had a bad game. But so did the rest of the team, man. That team made out a stinker. I can honestly probably only 3 Giants that had a good game. It's probably unnoticed, but you know, I thought Tyler Nubin played really good. I thought he did. I also thought Drew Phillips looked all right in the slot. And I also, you know, also thought the offensive line, for the most part, you know what I mean, held up their own. You know, I just a lot of mistakes, a lot of coaching mistakes too. Listen, we can't get the ball at the other teams on the other side, and then 3 penalties we even snap the ball, right? You know what I mean? It's just little things like that. You know, it's got to come together. But I do have faith. You know, I don't want to dwell on last week too much, but I just interested in what you guys think about. You know what I mean? Just going to Washington, even though we've had success against them, you know, it is a new regime, the coordinator that we don't have much experience. You know, so that does worry. But I honestly think that this Giants team is just a couple things away from starting some games. I think we have the problem. I think if we can win the trenches, you can win games in this. Got to run the ball better. But I'm just interested in what you guys think of throwing away the season after one game. You know, it's kind of tough to do that. Like I don't know, I kind of agree with Lance's point that, you know, we don't even know how good the Vikings are going to defense. You know, we kind of, you know what I mean, we kind of laid the bed there. You know, I kind of want to come into this Washington game like we came into the Detroit, ready for a fight. You know, win, lose, or draw, we're going to be physical, and I hope that's what the game plan is, and all around better. You know, and that includes Dable. You know, I'm sorry to say, but Flores had his number.
Yeah,
you know,
well, I don't think anybody is disputing that. And Flores did a nice job with that Vikings defense, and appreciate the phone call, Alex. Last season, when he took over, because Minnesota had one of the worst defenses the year prior when the Giants took advantage of them. Remember that shootout in the regular season and then, of course, in the postseason. So I do think this was an improved Vikings team. It's not necessarily a juggernaut in the NFL. They got a lot more football to play. We'll have to see if Sam Darnold can thrive like he did against the Giants. I think the most discouraging aspect, John, is just the fact that, and this is where I think a lot of Giants fans come from, that it was a bit of a continuation of what we saw last season.
It looked exactly the same.
Correct. That's where the discouraging aspect is, because you changed parts, right? You brought in some new offensive linemen. You got a new defensive coordinator.
New play caller on offense.
Young players, you name it. A lot of changes, yet similar results. And it's the old story. You continue to do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That doesn't add up. Well, now you made changes, but you're getting the same results. So how do you look at it from that lens? And I can understand frustration. It's only one game, but Washington is not the Washington of old. And even if the Giants' performance is better, the caveat is they're not playing Washington every single week. Because Washington, as much newness that they have, Dan Quinn will tell you the first thing right now, he's got a lot of work to do with his team. And they're far from a finished product. So you can make you feel good about yourself within the span of 7 games, and then another team is waiting 7 days later to give you the rude awakening. And this team, they can't be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It can't be a roller coaster. There's got to be consistency, but the consistency can't be 6 points every single week or hovering in the teens, and then a defense that can't get after the quarterback and is put in a tough spot because they have to almost play a game where the margin for error is non-existent. And that's what happened last season and could very well play out again if the offensive production doesn't skyrocket.
Yeah, it's a matchup league. You hope the matchup this week plays in the Giants' favor a little bit. We talked a lot about Jaden Daniels, how explosive he can be, how well he ran the ball last week, over 80 rushing yards, design runs, scrambles. But again, I really think the way the Giants now play their defense, playing a lot of that zone coverage, keeping an eye on the quarterback, you don't have to worry about spying him because you're in zone. I think the hope would be that that's going to cut down on some of those Jaden Daniels scrambles at the very least, which was a big part of that Commander offense last week, and that'll slow down their offense overall. Lance, this was fun, buddy.
Absolutely.
It's good seeing you, man.
Same here.
For Lance
100%.
Medow, I am John Schmeelk. That's Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. For Pearson Butler, we'll see you next time, everybody.
Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
You go into your shower feeling... But as soon as you reach for the Irish Spring, your day immediately gets better. That crisp, fresh, unmistakable Irish Spring scent zings your brain and awakens your senses. So when you finally emerge from the shower, 37 minutes later, because you pay the water bill so you can stay in there as long as you want, you're ready to take on the day and smell great doing it. Irish Spring Body Wash and Bar Soap. Fresh, green, Irish. Shop now at Walmart.